We are at the Aldo Sohm Wine Bar, and I am here fittingly with Aldo Sohm. Thank you so much for having me here.
It's great to have you.
So today, obviously in front of us, we have some wine, we have dessert. So of course we're talking about pairing wine with dessert, but we're gonna do a little twist on it because you don't have to have dessert wines with dessert, right?
Well, you can play around with it. It's no problem. I mean, if you start pairing and if you take the pairing really seriously, there's certain rules. We always learn that, like white meat goes with white wine and fish, right? And dark meat goes with red wine, but that's only a certain guideline.
So you have a few wines here to give examples of excellent pairings with desserts. Where do we even begin with these pairings?
Well, I would start first with the apple, because an apple is much less sweet than chocolate.
Right.
It's fruitier. It's a little bit more forward. I took a Prosecco with me because what people very often don't realize, Prosecco has a high amount of residual sugar. This is totally dry though. However, there's a little bit of residual sugar, which makes it here work with the apple. Because an apple is not that super sweet. That will enhance all the apple flavors. It makes it even cleaner and fresher. I brought also even a wine from the Loire Valley. What was interesting on that was, given they have a little bit of caramel, that wine has also a little bit kind of this baked apple component to it. And I thought it actually was quite interesting.
Wow. And what wine is this?
It's actually called 000. It's basically French sparkling wine, because I know in America people, whatever is bubbles is called champagne, but
right. But it is not.
The people in Champagne, they take that very personal.
Right, they take that very seriously. So it's the Loire Valley sparkling wine.
Exactly.
And why go with the Prosecco and the sparkling wine versus a champagne?
A champagne is very mineral driven, so it's focused, very, very fresh. And when you have high acid and that sweetness, that makes it immediately kind of bitter and really tart. I've worked also here, look, believe it or not, on the apple with a Chardonnay. It's a California Chardonnay, but it's not creamy butter, it's really more on the fresher side.
Right.
And I tasted it with the team, and everybody said, wow, this actually makes no sense. Which is a total unorthodox pairing, right? But it totally works. So it leaves you a little freshness, and it's really vibrant. I like, especially on desserts, you run very often in a danger that you add too much sweetness, especially on sweet wines, than necessary, which makes you always very heavy, it makes you really sink into the chair. You have even on a sparkling, a nook for acidity, just to break you through the cream.
Yeah.
And an apple has also a good amount of acid, so just to break through that. But look also for good fruit, and especially that kind of appley fruit.
Right.
Just to align them with each other. I brought also Gewürztraminer with it. That's a more an obvious pairing. Once you have to push the envelope, then you have to play it safe again. You cannot push all the time. You have to go back into the sort of safe harbor. So there it's it's still on the dry side, but it's rounder, it's more elegant. But to me, it's a little heavier in that sense.
And what do you do if you have a variety of fruit desserts? Let's say you have something with berries and you have something with apples. Do you then play it a little bit safer, or do you try and have specific wines to whatever people are eating?
Well, if it's me, I don't play safe.
Good.
Interesting enough, I played even with a beer.
Yeah, we have a beer here.
And,
so what?
Beer is very often, it's an interesting component because you have cream. A beer has a good amount of freshness that will cut it right through. And actually here with the bitter components and the sweet flavors, it's actually quite an interesting contrast and leaves it really clean.
Let's move on to chocolate. Everyone's favorite subject, really, but also one that's fraught when talking about wine, because not everybody wants to have port at the end of the meal.
Yeah.
So where do you begin when thinking about chocolate?
Well, chocolate is a dicey topic because chocolate...
Let's get into it.
Chocolate sounds very simple, but yet it all depends on the cocoa content, right? And chocolate, if it's a milk chocolate or a dark chocolate, it's a totally different thing.
Right.
That being said, is the chocolate part is, if it's dark chocolate, you have much more astringent, much more bitter components, much more earthy components. On a milk chocolate, it's much smoother, sweeter. So from that, you have to adjust. You can also do some really rich red wines with it. And I picked here a Grenache and Shiraz from Australia, where you have also kind of these little chocolatey tones on the nose.
Right.
It's really soft in tannins, but it's more fruit driven. You want the heaviness.
You want the body.
I want the body to that. And there's a little bit of oak flavor coming too, so basically they all play with each other along. But once it's the cocoa content is too high for the wine, you will turn immediately. The cocoa content and the tannins, they interfere. They're not necessarily really friendly.
So what do you pair if you have a really dark chocolate or a really, really rich chocolate dessert? Where do you go? Because you got to still drink some wine.
I have to drink some. We can get around that. You can work yourself also around with some rums with no problem.
Interesting.
That actually mingles.
So the darker the chocolate is, really, the more you should stay away from wine.
Yes. Yes, because you have tannins.
Right.
And the tannins, they're basically, there's conflict with that.
What do you do? The dreaded question is, of course, what if you're serving someone chocolate and fruit? What do you do?
I go back into the bubble area.
Bubbles just work with all.
Bubbles, that's always forgotten. If you're stuck on a pairing,
Yeah.
I, in this case, not use champagne, but I use basically
Right.
pink sparkling wine. Because you will maneuver yourself a little bit around that. Might it be the perfect pairing? Maybe not, but you can maneuver around because
Right.
there you're basically pushed in a certain corner.
Right.
Right?
Of two very different meals.
Exactly. So how
Right.
do you basically find the diplomacy to get out of that? It's great after a meal, because it's
Right.
refreshing. It looks pretty,
Right.
and it works.
Wonderful. Well, Aldo, thank you so much for helping us maneuver and navigate the very difficult world of pairing wine with our desserts.
But it's a fun world.
Listen, no one can argue with drinking wine and eating desserts, right? So thank you so much for
My
helping us
pleasure.
navigate it. Really
Thank you.
appreciate it.